Hey drummer, Rick here. You are officially into the meat and potatoes of this amazing course. Before we get started, probably heard people say, speak the language of drumming, right? Benny Greb has a famous video about that. Personally, I don't think of drums as speaking. I already know how to speak. I bet you know how to speak. We're not babies. I want to give you a new metaphor, the one that I like. It is driving. You are driving a beat. You are driving a song. Guess what we're going to do in this course? We are going to build your vehicle. And not just any vehicle, a high performance vehicle. That's how I look at the drums. It's so much more fun. Perhaps it's because my dad was a machinist and a tool maker. I like thinking of things in terms of building and machines. If you want to drive like Mario Andretti on the drums, fast, powerful, but also graceful, we need to build a solid machine from the ground up. And the first step for that is going to be get the junk out of the trunk. We're going to get the junk out of here. So in this first section, I want to give you the top 10 tips for making you a high performance drummer. We're going to go over misinformation, mistakes, some mindset tips, and at the very end, I'll give you a powerful practice tip that is probably worth the price of the whole course. It really is that powerful once you get that concept. So that's coming at the very end. Let's dive into this with number one. You may have heard people say this, the weak hand. Guess what? There is no weak hand. You don't have a weak hand with drums. You have a dominant hand, period. That's where it ends. You know, I got an email a few weeks ago from a really popular drum company, and it said, how to improve your weak hand. Guess what? I threw it away and I marked it as spam. You know, Tom Brady wouldn't think like that, and I'm not going to do it either. There is no practical reason to pursue perfect parity between each hand. You're always going to have one hand or one leg that's more dominant than the other. It starts when we're kids, and it's fine. Your pursuit on the drums is to play the songs and fills that you want to play. Does that mean we all have to have perfectly symmetrical kits and do perfectly symmetrical fills? No. It's up to you what you want to do. So you really don't need to think of yourself as having any weakness on the drums. There is no weak hand. Reject that idea. That is bad idea number one. Let's go to number two. Heel up versus heel down. What's the right technique? Neither. It's a false premise. There are so many videos that focus on this and make the drummer choose which technique to have, as if there's one versus the other. It's an oversimplification of kick technique. In a few videos, I'm going to show you the right way to kick the drum, and you'll understand at that point that there's a better way to think about it. In drum education, for some reason, there's a hyper focus on hands and feet. Hands and feet, hands and feet. But really, drumming power and control and speed comes from shoulders and hips. You're going to see how that plays out in the next couple videos. But heel up versus heel down is a false premise. It's an oversimplification. Reject that idea. Number three, right hand is king. Your right hand is your key timekeeper. Let me just blow that myth up real quick. How are you going to keep time if this thing's dancing all over the place? Wrong, bad information. It's a little more complicated than that. One limb has to be keeping the time at all times, and usually it's actually your left leg, but we'll get onto that later. Right hand is not king when it comes to keeping time. You can feel good about throwing that idea out. We're going to get a better method for keeping time. Number four, no pain, no gain. There's this macho idea in drumming that it needs to hurt. You got to have calluses on your hands. If your hands aren't bleeding, you're not playing them hard enough. This is ridiculous. Drumming should not hurt. Actually, if drumming hurts, you're doing something wrong. No part of your body should be in pain when you're playing the drums, including your hands, your legs, your back. All of those are signs of inefficient technique, bad technique. I like to keep my hands callous from going to the gym and raking leaves, but not from playing the drums. Number five is a tip in general. Don't bury the beater. What does that mean? So the beater is the part of your kick pedal that strikes the drum. And after you strike it, you have the option of laying into the drum or letting it rebound back. There are some cases to leave the beater into the drum. If you're using an acoustic kit with a big open kick drum sound, burying the beater or pressing it against the drum can have an effect on the sound. It can muffle it, can dampen it, it can deaden the ringing of the drum. We're working on coordination, and under that umbrella, don't bury the beater. You want to let it come back to you and bring your leg to rest so you can conserve energy and keep driving forward. If you're burying the beater, you're probably leaning into the drum, or you're activating your leg muscles and to depress the pedal, which is unnecessary. There's no reason to do that. Let's move forward. In this course, I'm going to recommend you wear shoes while you are learning. Unless you get to a point where you can do doubles and you can fly all over the drums and play whatever you want. Until you get to that point, it's a good idea to wear some shoes. Why? Because the pedal wasn't made for bare feet or slippery socks. Traction's super important for understanding how to strike the drum, and also for getting nice, tight, evenly spaced. The pedals are made for shoes. You wouldn't drive a car with bare feet, so you shouldn't play the drums with bare feet. Remember, I'm going to come back to this driving analogy all the time because it really is a perfect analogy for the drums. Number 7, don't use a metronome too soon. I see so many drum lessons and drum teachers that immediately put on the metronome click while the student is learning coordination. Correct order when you're working on coordination is get the core pattern down, work through your dynamic range with it, and at the very end, turn on the metronome and try to apply it to the time grid. Doing things strictly to a metronome is the last step. If your drum teacher puts on the metronome while you're still working through coordination, fire that teacher. You can tell them Rick Anthony told you that. Number 8 is a mindset tip. Has to do with understanding mistakes. So it's great to know that undeveloped or underdeveloped skills are not mistakes. Some people will say, wow, because I can't do a swing beat, that means I'm making a mistake. Or if you can't do 16th notes. If you get tripped up while you're doing that, that's not a mistake. That is underdeveloped coordination. It's not the same thing as a mistake. You never have to feel bad about that. The job is to keep pushing the envelope, the upper envelope of your drumming. So hitting your limit is a good thing. That's the space you want to play in most of the time. That's not making a mistake. You're not doing anything wrong by that, by getting tripped up and choking up. That's how you know you're doing it right. That's how you know you're making good use of your time on the drums, by finding your upper limit, finding the things that you need to work on. That's the sweet spot of drumming. That's where you are making the best investments. So those are not mistakes. So another great tip to keep in mind is some skills are multi-day skills. This one took me a little while to figure out. I was frustrated at drum lessons. I only went once per week, and certain things I couldn't master them in that practice session, and that drove me nuts until my teacher said, Rick, some of these are multi-day skills. And then he said the magic phrase, which changed everything. He said, just leave the page open. Come back to it later, and you'll get it then. Getting better on the drums is similar to lifting weights and exercise. I believe it's based on progressive overload. So rest is really important. Your body is recharging and thinking and making these connections in the background. And so some skills are multi-day skills. Your job is to take it as far as you can in one day, get all frustrated, and then take a break. Come back later. All you have to do is keep the page open and you'll be good. So here is the number 10 secret tip. This is such a powerful tip to supercharge your practice. Focus on the transitions. In our driving analogy, this is taking turns. Your skills as a drummer will increase dramatically if you focus your practice on making transitions and alternate. This can be on, say we're doing patterns, going from singles to doubles, for example. going from a verse to a chorus. You get the idea. Anything that causes your mind to make a mental shift and your body to make a physical shift, that will return dividends for you and your playing. That's why transitions is really the best tip on this list, and the exercise to come will incorporate that principle. So that about does it for this video. Now we're going to get deeper into setting up your foundation on the drums. I'll see you in the next video.